like definitely coming to the question right now with like Mara as well as like Gray as well as like Elfman right now determined to like find that the fourth and final is almost relevant for member Aria. Like I'm like therefore I can they will be like entering back into like the giant castle like base of like the country and like would be desperately looking for trying to find Aria while on the other side like right now it's like after fighting off against Aria like still because the like the scenario that I'm thinking about especially for like the group of like today, Nora as well as Elsman would be like eventually ending up as they will be searching for area, they will be usually ending up in that very top area of like floor of like giant where like Jose and like those people were wearing like the clothes would be it should be definitely dark element of definitely member 300. So like I'm considering like definitely the remembrances that like so that way like from there like they won't be able to like escape and that was when like the whole fight so totally happened between like Jose versus like while like I was looking like to prevent and I was looking at that point where I think seeing these like dark people wearing like the clothes like basically like like doing some sort of like a magical spell or something like I'm looking Mara totally being able to figure out that it's like these four members of like the faction, like their powers are basically collected and basically are joined up to like create like the atmospheric magic through these like spells of like these uh, bunch of like people wearing like the clothes would be along the lines of like the situation and like I'm within Emerald on being able to trigger that and Emerald telling like as well as like man to like basically stop them and take them down. But like I'm looking at they would be trying to like attack them like I'm looking like Jose would be stopping them. Like the scenario that so like I'm looking at that point for like the fight between like Joe a single Jose versus like the team of like Nara, Elfman as well as Grace, like the scenario that I'm looking at. While it will be happening like the fight between like Nacho and Aria would be continuing just like the scenario that I'm looking at again. So my preparation for like how exactly like the Abyss magic would be eventually getting stopped. Like I'm just like still was the tournament like it will be only getting stopped while like that Abyss magic would be about to launch. Like that very last second is when I was like the magic to be stopped and it will be stopped especially through natural like the scenario that I'm doing. By then like until then like I'm doing now battling to the extreme of like and it will be like thoroughly getting awkward by area, but like I was bring towards like the very end of that fight, like I was bringing to somehow managing to like or points, and I was like it wouldn't be through any sort of trickery or like a strategical manner through which like Nanzo had trick like Totamaru a lot, like I was like if that would be like the scenario here in like Nanzo fight against Aria, like I'm looking Aria to be like uh, would be like the strongest Finland core member for like Arika and was like Natsu maybe like even attempting to like trick Arya during his fight against Arya, like how he tricked like Totamaru, but like all that attempts like failing because like Arya would be like that much cunning and clever, especially with Pain Picture. So like once that all that with that all that like attempts of that Naruto failing like and then recovering like Arya totally thoroughly overpowering and defeating almost about to like defeat Naruto and like us like Arya would be able to take the life of Naruto at that very last second I was doing like Atsu Naruto was like getting some sort of like with that absolute determination to like destroy and basically save like the entirety of Magnolia as well as like the Presidential base as well as something like at that very last second like and now so also at that point you'll be thinking of that basically Lucy and all of Lucy and basically that safety member who is basically even got badly injured by like badly hurt by like the fan of skills and all that like basically and with that has to crazy like and also some sort of like a power awakening within Natsu or like Natsu getting like a first Natsu actually getting will be getting like a first like a power of state for Natsu and using that power of state would be how that that makes the Natsu would be like eventually or for and defeating Aria like the scenario that I'm looking and that would be what results in like the Abyss Magnetic like getting stopped as like it would be about to launch like the Abyss Magnetic getting stopped and basically like that way thrones have to about the present like would be how like Magnolia can be killed at that point it's like the scenario that I'm looking so like even though that and I'm looking at that point like the team of like Kiray as well as like Mara as well as like Elfman. they attempt to like basically stop like those dark members who be like using that spell like their sad attempt will be totally fading like the scenario that I'm and they'll be forced to like fight off against like Jose and usually they'll be forced to like have no other option but to like to defeat Jose they have to like stop like those like people wearing like because wearing like the clothes who are like using that spell to like launch this strike then scenario that I'm but like even with like the collective try of same effort of like Elfman and Mara as well as like Gray, like I'm looking them not being able to like offer and defeat like the with the trains that's like shortage like it's another that I'm looking for. So like Jose will leave that much more speedily along with that it's another that I'm going. Yet like I'm just going through not to like that a disparate magic get stop with like the scenario that I was doing. And I'm just like until then like I was doing like the team of like and I was doing like two possibilities like Monday time they what was the possibility that one like a disparate magic would do that they stop like and all four of like then and four members would be defeated like at that point I was doing the giant cassette of like the band will like at that point like crumbling down and like everything destroyed it's like and falling down like scenario that I was doing. And at that point, Silvan was looking like Sire as well as like Nora as well as like Elson as well as like Natsu like and but when by the time Natsu will be repeating Aria like Natsu was going to be so badly exhausted that Natsu won't be able to like escape from like the giant. But like I was going to get happy that would be like carrying and escaping with like this like scenario and saving that for that kind of like scenario that and then was like yeah, even though like I'm also supporting like the team of like Mara, Grey, and Elfman not being able to like defeat Jose. Still, I'm also supporting like at that point with like Zen, Seattle as well as the element for defeated like Jose at that point, which is feeling as like yeah, absolutely no other choice but to like basically make a preference for the findings like the scenario that I'm supporting, and that way like extremely encourage Jose like. And encourage them from spreading Jose like making it to the stage just like the scenario that I'm doing, and definitely also protecting like definitely as well like the person who's trying to like bring down the whole door of like the like rate of hiding in the tree like I'm getting that person will be especially like Iron Gajeel especially when we frame it. So like I'm just like Iron Gajeel would be like breaking down that door and then there's just like as like Iron Gajeel would be like and I'm working but like rate of things that would that like stop Gajeel but like I'm looking Gajeel being like so or more. If it is stronger than Raiders that like I'm given like and that is that badly injuring and defeating Raiders it's like scenario that I was in and as like Gajeel will be about to take Raiders it's like I'm looking like Lucy shouting out to like this news. Gajeel said this need to not take his life that like Lucy would like let herself be captured by Gajeel is like the scenario that I was in. So like that way like I was looking like that's why there was two possibilities. Like basically, the gene being so friendly with them is that like maybe the gene like that at that point maybe saying that this need like at this point that and at that point like maybe I'm looking getting one possibility for the gene to like listen to like that condition of like Loke and the gene like basically not taking a Raiders' life and the gene like taking Loke and like the gene will be leaving like at that point like getting being confronted by Loke. It's like one scenario that I'm going to think about. The possibility is basically getting being so extremely villainous that the reason why Luffy will be like feeling still like cannot take real of his life like getting still villains be not listen to like Luffy and like getting and act as like getting will be able to take a real of his life at that point like Loki is showing up and Loki like saving real. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. And at that point like the whole Loki versus like getting fight happening like the scenario that Amazon has. That's clear was the princess fight, and in that Loki was the real fight and was the like Loki is falling this way into like eventually totally overpowering and defeating Jesse is like the scenario that I'm going to call it. And my consideration. So like I said, consideration for like Loki to like struggle with pain to like eventually or they or probably overpowering and defeating and sinking like Jesse and like Gajeel would be usually having like ego and like yeah like I'm thinking Loki to be like personally empathetic that like I'm thinking Loki still even though Loki would be at that point able to like take the geek's life like I'm looking like Loki is still sparing Gajeel's life and I'm definitely also praying for Loki to like most likely get some sort of like a power of faith in his during his fight against like Gajeel which should be what that would be allowing Gajeel to or one of Gajeel is also left in the scenario that get like understanding like Loki is like sorry fair and Gajeel like and that is solely allowing like Gajeel to like make the perfect place and escape is like the scenario that I'm looking at the end. So the film has been mentioned right now as well, like that without or like with human thoughts of that, like we are right now taking care of Macro, like right now looking at Macro and saying if it's imagination, like it will be like okay, my good friend versus that, like that will be most likely that woman that the sort of like or like it's not she will have like mysterious powers and like she will be also like at times like she will be getting some nonsense of like events that will be happening in like the near future the new awareness. So like right now she might have right now seen like the premonition of like the future in the near future of like Natsu defeating Aria. Aria, that person, like the element core member of the planet, who had basically probably defeated macro by taking away macro like and that of like magical power language that person like literally after defeating that person that area like if this was might have been what right now that I was like that this other rich doctor that she might have right now seen as like a promotion right now. And that might be the reason for like she might have gotten shocked at that point. And basically that might be the reason for like her right now basically coming back and looking at like her macro right now and basically like even like it will be like to it's really hard for her to like believe that like uh some of like the fairy tale skill members that's like not even a senior fairy tale skill members like basically like defeating Aria who had basically defeated like Macaro. Like, so it would be totally unbelievable for of like romance for her. This really like the reason for like her right now looking at Macaro and even saying that if it's like her imagination, it's definitely my very encouraging right. So that's like the name of the introduction right now was like Aria right now about the use of like airspace but ruin magic towards like nothing like the way saying magic like to like actually remove like the magic of like macro like and also like in macro field like the flame of that like the whole reason that magic works from macro be most likely due to that exceptional stealth abilities stealth skills of like Aria's the minimum like but still like right now there's no absolute steps in like the situation right now is like with like Aria was used to start right now Aria like about to use it like after ruin magic on to understand like solely due to like the lack of stealth and the different like definitely the attack not working like the airface rolling attack of like Aria right now failing on scenarios like the scenario that I'm looking. So like another thing as like how exactly Nancy would be like escaping from that attack like right now. I'm just looking like two possibilities. One possibility is like for like happy right now like jumping towards like and getting in between Nato and Aria and that way like the attack landing on happy and that way like happy is losing all of like happy's like it's like one possibility that I'm considering. And that way, happy is that way that sacrificing all of like happy's magic right now is, at this moment is like say that's just like one possible scenario that I'm considering. The other possible scenario that I'm considering for like since like due to solely due to the lack of strength right now, I'm considering that Nancy being able to like dot like the airspace ruling magic of Aria right now is like the other possible scenario that I'm considering. So like the player was regardless of any scenario, I'm considering let's the current airspace ruin magical attack of like items of like Aria to like scale Nancy's magic would definitely be failing is like the player with the obviously, like the name of the brand mentioned right now is like Erza right now trading and also from like getting manufacturing by Aria like but it's still microphone machine right now it's like Erza going up to like the value build. The name of them still Erza won't be able to like contribute much at all to this like fight against like to this current fight against Aria. Definitely my information because like for example like stopping like that intensity of like that powerful attack of like stupid rumble like Erza would be like badly exhausted and badly injured. It's definitely my information. So like even though and South would be like right now hiding all that face and and the injuries would be like written in that sort of like the nuances and South is only hiding all that pain to like keep the moral high for like Nasu so that like together like a South with only hoping that together with Nasu like they might stand a chance in correct of Arya but like still the scenario that I'm observing right now is definitely for like Arya without much great difficulty at all. Like after not being able to like do much at all, and like Arya without much great difficulty, like would be attacking and sidelining Nasu and basically like and then like totally overpowering us as well. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at, like as like Arya would be about to like most likely I'm looking like Arya badly like injuring and defeating that and after like the scenario that I was effect. So like at that point I was wondering maybe Arya also like taking removing all of like stuff like magic as well. It's also like the scenario that I was doing. And maybe that at that point Arya starting to like also take stuff like so like at that very last and seeing all this like Natsu seeing all this from excitement and you know so he was so badly injured that he won't be able to like even enjoy that he won't be able to like get up. So like I was already seeing that Arya on top of that taking away all the magic of Erza as well, like basically Aria on top of that, like about to take a first light as well, like if that kind of different like at that last moment, like I was like that will be triggering Nazi and forcing Nazi to be accused and taking Nazi to like bring out like some sort of like hidden power that's lying within like Nazi. And like that way, like Nazi getting like the power of good and then like I'm going to be like a one versus one fight between like Nazi and Aria and this like Nazi would be like probably overpowering and Aria will be get shocked by seeing like the sound of in power of that Nasu and some power of their Nasu and like then I was like Arya totally struggling against like successful power from like Nasu and Nasu totally for indicating that his attack of like Arya like easily like not being strong enough to like do something against like Nasu at that point and Nasu totally or like Nasu speeding reaching and Nasu totally being able to like easily dodge that when they really Nasu totally offering and defeating Arya it's like the scenario that I'm going to again and like if like Arya that way ends up like taking away like the first magic then I was also like straight up like defeating Arya, like, and even though I was running like after defeating Arya, like at that point, just like not only like the not only like the Whisper magic would be stopping, but also like I was like and to also some humbling down as well. It's also like another that I'm thinking. But like even though like I was even after that, like Arya would be like badly exhausted and injured from his fight against like Natsu, that like I was thinking like at that point, and Natsu not uh, catching hold of the Arya and like so and like the character still like that way like pretending to take Arya's life and like that way like them staring at Arya and just get them that way forcing Arya to like basically kill back like to basically all the magic that's like dissipated into the air like due to Arya as well as like just doing that the shade shadow creatures of like those way like basically all those like magic of interface members that would have disappeared better into like they are like that way like by taking Aria hostage that's almost magic that has dissipated into the air will be collected back and will be that way like all the characters will members including like a sound be getting back the like getting back their magic and like then I'm also going in the case of substitute in my premise well like in the case of macros magic I can put something like maybe like a good portion of macros magic would be like permanently lost. Yes, like I'm putting like more than just like half of like macros like total my willpower would be like be able to be collectible at that point like scenario that I'm putting and that will actually them getting that magic to like collecting and getting that magic to like macro trading macro in such a manner like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like so from that point on permanently macro will be less a whole lot bigger than we used to that when you have like the full extent of this like magic. So leaders that are yeah, definitely less than the scenario that are probably bringing and sitting on the one for the others. So like that way like my preferred questions that like even though macros would be like getting back most more than like half of it like probably magical powers like still considering that that locks in his like actual magical fun like I'm considering like that resulting in like macro like losing his like with a saying title and like macro being removed from like as like a from like the title of like silver thing as like one of the groups of saying this like the scenario that I'm the for the incident. While Jose, even though Jose would have lost to like the character still in like eventually would be losing to this like character skills with like the elements of numbers like for like the element of numbers like taken out and everything like though Jose would be a rating still Jose would be like remaining as like with the title of like remaining the title of being one of exercise or saying this depending on the brain and that would be solely due to like Jose not like destroying like that's solely due to like the beast magic like no getting launched and like and Jose not not being able to like destroy Magnolia solely due to that reason I don't remember the like so they being able to like remain as like remain with like holding on to like the position of like with the saint as well as like the fantasy skill as well, being able to like hold on to like the whole status of like being a normal kid as well as like the scenario that I was in. So like I'm looking like as even though I'm looking like most likely crowd complaining to council about like the atrocities of like the council. Still, the point like the council members would be like totally dismissing that as like and basically would you think that as like both the fairy tales skills as well as like the kind of skills that like basically doing this completely unfitting of like normal use and then also like the council like punishing both like the heritage guilds as well as the fancy guilds, but like other than still like the council not removing like the heritage guilds or like the fancy guilds from like the list of like the normal guilds. That definitely was very not happening. But like I was thinking still like I was hoping that the council would be only seeing that as like just another flash between like the characters and the fantasy since it's already been written that like the characters and like fantasy have flashed over and fought over in like the past multiple times. Like so like I was bring like the council like totally dismissing this like attack of like the fight between like the attack of like, the fantasy as like really just another fight between like the characters and the fantasy and that other like the council members just believing like Macro's words when like Macro tells them that like Jote was like and like just like and was trying to like destroy like the entirety of like the Magnolia using like the like magic and all that. Like basically solely due to like the lack of evidence and different like the council members not believing Magnolia. It's like the scenario that I was going like so like that way eventually like the macro like due to like Jose and like council like macro losing a certain portion, a certain relevant portion of his like total magic as well as losing his like that way losing his like which are doing slightly quite like so they would be like still remain having this like holding on to his like with a frame title with like doing the scenario that I'm bring and not bring and by the perimeters of the thought like and that way for like macro that way to like become from that point on becoming an easier target for like the darkness for like all purpose darkness that will be out there that will be having that grudge towards like the purpose it's a beautiful purpose the purpose still having crossed up and like destroyed like the goals of like the star guild multiple times in like the purpose with like the symbol guild as well as the allied magic situation and everything that is so like the black uh, so like I was saying, the dark skill would be have it being like the heritage skill as like a target that they need to get rid of. The specific target, like I mean, like when normal builds like the dark skill right now would be only thing like the heritage skill as like a specific target that they need to get rid of. And so the other reason for also for like the dark skill like helping out the fantasy skill. And like that will be how like the reason for like Joe Tatum getting his hands on like one of like the Lost magic like the Abhi Break magic, especially right now, especially my Rainbow. Okay, so like live on same position right now with like Aria right now, like finally remove his like blindfold. Like if they, my Arya position right now is for like why exactly Aria would be like keeping his like eyes in like blindfold, like kind of changing the most likely due to like Aria wanting like a competitive like in the challenging battle, especially when it's raining. Because like as like an the strong Stillman form member like Aria and actually would be so such like strong that whenever like the kind of skill will be taking part in like any sort of like fight like basically at that point like in like the past whenever like Arya would be fighting without having to like ice covered like something like the power of Arya would be like basically like the without covering Arya's eyes like I'm like completely Arya might be able to like use this like airspace magic with like using way higher accuracy and speed definitely might be very interesting so so that like basically like whenever Arya would have faced like any opponent in like the past, like basically Arya will be selectively Arya might be always like in each and every single fight that Arya might have fought in like the past like without Arya's like eyes being covered like Arya might have quickly taken out like the enemies and opponents at that point that you know pretty much. So like Arya might have been like missing that for like might badly like fight might have ended up becoming boring for like Arya at that point. It's a game and the brand. It was like before even beginning like the fight itself, like Arya will be able to leave it like very first or second airspace attack itself will be able to like offer and try and defeat like the opponent. Might have been like the situation with Arya. Definitely mentioning because of like the exceptional accuracy and the speed with and because of like the exceptional accuracy, like Aria will be able to like launch it like capture magic with that at the speed as well. Definitely well and that like the opponent at that point will be like it will be extremely hard for like the opponent to black out all of the FKs as well as the wind element phase like magic of like Aria at that point. Definitely well then so like I'm assuming this would be like the third reason for like Aria most likely deciding to like fight in a blind spot that like man so that like uh so that like Aria won't be able to like use this like at the pro power and so that like that way the fight with like Arya seeing like the all of like Arya's like opponents as well as enemies like being extremely weak like I'm looking like Arya solely for Arya to get like a challenging battle Arya might have like blindfold that's like I still definitely have the range. So this might be the best reason for like against Ursa like right now Arya is in remains like blindfold is definitely might be the same person. So since like our Erza is like of like the same kind of like status as and level as that of like Aria with like position as that of like Aria with like Aria being like the senior element for member of like this like kind of really by like Erza is like the senior member of like fraternity as well. It's definitely my positive impression. Yeah, like even without like the blindfold right now, like I'm looking like Arya with like full power would be like so extremely for like so badly exhausted right now. Who would be definitely badly exhausted right now, but like would be totally putting on a fake act to like not bring down like the morale and increase like the morale to not bring down like the morale of like Nasu and to increase like the morale of like Arya might be like the reason for like us right now, even though it will be most likely will be badly exhausted, like it'll be like not showing that especially in the limit. So like I'm just like with like Arya right now, even taking off to like blindfold, like I'm just like Arya would be like so extremely awkward that like Erza would be like quickly getting defeated without even being able to like at all put much of like a fight at all. Definitely the scenario that I'm just doing, like and never could and then it will be like the Arya just like full strength works like nothing fight. That will be like the ultimate fight like to which like Rasta definitely would be like a witness and like watching from like the sidelines as to like so as like I'm given definitely not to be getting like that major power grade like in that fight against like Arya which would be like whole thing that really allowing nothing to be able to like defeat Arya. And also bringing Rasta watching from like the sidelines like badly injured and the sidelines like watching from like the sidelines then and she's getting impressed with like the growth of like Natsu and I was like maybe like through this fight like I was Nasu whether or not to would be like defeating Arya, who's like a senior element for member of like the fans that I'm delivering like through this fight, like by the time like Natsu will be defeating Arya, like I'm delivering like Natsu most likely becoming like qualified to be like and reaching like the possibly reaching like the actual same level of strength of that Arza, never with Emerson like Arza while not being exhausted like that actual true power of Arza like I'm doing Natsu possibly right now through this fight against Arya like possibly reaching up to that exact level. Definitely one of them is like I was doing like definitely after like Natsu scenario should be like Natsu initially struggling to like offering and defeating Arya and once Natsu would be like defeating Arya and like Jose would be like referring and everything. And after like macro would be saved like and all that. Like at that point, I'm really something like once like all of the federation members will be returning back to like the federation days. Like I'm just something like by then like Erza would have totally told to like secretly told to like macro about like the whole fight between Naruto and Arya and how like Naruto had like only fought by himself had totally fought and defeated Arya. So like definitely macro at that point while they would all be up and back to like the fair face will be like it would be making the like announcement and declaration that basically promoting Naruto as like a senior member of like the heritage guild. This is like the scenario that I'm considering. And I'm considering like it wouldn't just be maybe it wouldn't just be like Naruto alone. I'm considering like these are all like elements, even Jovia as well as Source are like elements for members. And so like I'm considering maybe like Elfman, I'm definitely saying also like the possibility of like Elfman along with like Natsu, Elfman as well as like Kire as well being promoted to like senior service jail member with like the scenario that I'm bringing. That way like I'm just bringing at that point Lucy being like so extremely jealous. It's like the scenario that I'm bringing because like at that point like Natsu and Grey and like Edman will be getting promoted to being as a team members and they will be able to like go up to and explore like the top floor of like the service will be while Lucy won't be able to get like I'm like just the scenario to be like Natsu as well as Grey as well as Elfman, like certainly exploring like the top part of the better skill base get like I'm during like the tournament grade delay like them uh, coming back down to like the lower floor and then like preferring like the low even though they are senior credited still members like exactly like as well like then totally preferring to stay at like the lower floor bottom floor like the credited children. It's like they will scenario that I'm working with another thing. So like after the four fight against like the fans will like I was like in like the next mission or like the next week like situation or like the next big fight that will be happening after like the whole current battlefield fight scenario like another thing like in the very next fight that will be taking place eventually in that fight is when I was saying like Luffy and then like Lucy would be getting her major spotlight moment in which in that fight where like Luffy would be like simply participating in that fight and getting like a major power grade and defeating some expecting a strong opponent. And I'm sure like it will be through that fight. Once that fight would be over, that like it will be at that point that I'm also like Lucy will be getting promoted by Macro as like a senior fairy tale skill member as well. Happening at that point, reflecting the scenarios that I'm also I'm not also that my history of Russian right now is talk like basically that want to like support fight current fight against like the fans will be over and I want to member to brand of different like the really nasty and man as well as Gray would be getting promoted to like being senior character team members and would be like excitedly exploring like the top floor of the basics will be at that point I'm just it would just be like Lucy alone but like I'm just locally as well who would have by then like defeated like Iron Gajeel would be also like would be extremely jealous of like Nasu Elfman and Grey because like I'm looking like definitely Loki being extremely cross the black as with like matter at that point like the scenario that I was like Loki after like defeating that I am the which like the scenario that I'm doing and at that point like Loki would be the only thing is that like if he is one thing like macro like promoting Nasu as well as like Grey to become senior players president at that point Loki would be totally expecting him to be like the next person that the right answer like would be promoted by macro so like taking the thing up into place but that won't be happening at all. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. And that person like no to like get extremely jealous of like nothing. And Gray and Alpine like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm doing that next big fight that will take place on the like Loki as well. Not along with like Loki and the Loki as well getting that major spotlight and defeating something to face from villain and something like along with like Loki after that next big fight that will be happening I'm doing like Lucy Loki as well, ending up becoming like promoter to like becoming seen after interactions on the like getting the scenarios that I'm saying in the range. It's in the favor of Mr. Emerson right now as for like Aria taking off such like flying hold alone like offering like the Abyss Price magic like magic support to like basically get and last forms like I'm also especially when the Emerson right now is that really Aria like actual pro strength without like the blind flaws would be like stronger than like the combined strength of Pokemon as well as Julia as well as Sword combined, especially Mental Brand. And that will be how much like exceptionally strong Arya will be. It's definitely Mental Brand. And still, I'm looking like the Abyss Break of some like right now, but like it's like launching process will be getting accelerated. So only due to like Arya right now taking off like the blindfold, it's like the scenario that I'm doing. Yet like I'm looking like right before like the Bistro match will be launched like right before that like and definitely burning like if it is definitely expressly Nato without anybody else's help like Nato all by himself in like that one versus one fight against like Arya at Arya's like full strength. Like still it would be like Nato all by himself getting that power of trade and defeating Arya. It's like the scenario and stopping like the Bistro match is like the scenario that I'm also against thinking about them. Okay, so like the new was very interesting right now with like the readers right now tending to see to like around and basically like readers right now facing off against like those two that Lauren Phantom. And I remember I'm basically right now being stopped by Iron Gajeel and basically with like Loki as well hearing the sound of destruction from nearby like but being also I'm Russia right now is definitely for like the scenario that I'm thinking out is definitely for like it will be like a one versus one Iron Gajeel versus Loki fight. That would be that in which like Loki would be like your injury or foreign and weaken and reduce like definitely the scenario that I'm sitting with. But in the case of Loki, I'm going to bring that I'm going to bring like a scenario to be like one flat and Loki will be showing up like at that point I'm going to be like and Loki will be only a stick her captivity by IMDb. So like I'm going to bring like maybe like IMDb like maybe even like slightly like scaring Loki or like and maybe like slightly even like during sleep is also like a positive element. So like right then itself like I'm looking like uh right then itself I'm opening Loki stopping Lucy and like Loki telling Lucy to like run. It's like the exactly like a real of like Loki as well telling Lucy to like run and save us. But Loki won't be saying that was that absolute with like an absolute contentment, so it's definitely pretty over Loki having this black hole disturbance when connected to that disturbance and sort of like a reflect when connected to like self still with us like everything like still for Loki at that point telling Lucy to like around like the scenario that I'm feeling right now. And then was like at that point, like why then like Lucy would be fed up, and because like at that point, then Lucy would be like looking really what Lucy would be seeing from her point of view would be like really Loki on one side, like struggling to like hold his own against like and Gazelle and basically like a rate of the on the other side, like basically like she's struggling and she's getting badly injured by those two Spanish members, like the scenario that I'm looking. So like in such a situation like with like Loki as well while struggling against like and the would be like shouting out like Lucy in the background. So like at that point I was thinking Lucy would be fed up with like running so much that Lucy will be like fed up and Lucy will be reaching that point where like Lucy will be finally deciding to like fight back. So basically just like this is only staying along the lines at that point that basically Lucy after the at that point coming to the decision that basically the black fandom skill members like the fairy tale skill members like struggling and fighting so much to like just like save us like that like now it's her turn to like fight back to help back like against fairy tale skill members along the lines like I'm Lucy come to the decision at that point. It's like the scenario that like she's come running fully along the lines that Lucy to come to that final decision. Yeah. So like I'm looking at that point, like I'm looking like Lucy basically most likely like running towards Lucy is afraid at that point like I'm looking Lucy attacking that two lower right fantasy number that will be like thoroughly overpowering readers and like readers will be like she'll be about to get injured when or like those two final skill members will be about to take a reader to like when like I'm looking like Lucy would be like bring out one of her self spirit and basically the fight beginning in that, and then she as well finally participating in like the fight against like Spanish at that name is like the scenario that I was over. So like I was on the right before Lucy come to the question like Lucy will be thinking of those like precious fairy tale skill members that basically suffered because of like Lucy and all that. So like and even that way like Lucy decided to like fight back and like that way like I'm looking at those two Spanish skill member like lower rank Spanish skill member that would be like that are that's at that point like would be like in a two versus one fight, we'll be fighting out will be totally offering and badly injuring like rate of like Amazon like if that fight turning into like a two versus two fight with like the team of Raiders and Lucy like fighting off against those two lower rank finance guild members while different like in the case of like Iron Gajeel like I'm doing like the fight scene like Iron one versus one fight between like Iron Gajeel versus like Loki where like initially even though Loki will be so badly struggling like I mean just like even though like Lucy would want to like help Loki and possible like Loki like telling at that point telling Lucy that basically that he's started that even though Loki would be badly struggling like Lucy would be telling Lucy that like he's started so they don't blind. So like I'm assuming like even though so he would be like immediately so badly and extremely struggling against like I am Gajil. And even though I am Gajil would be so extremely strong, like I'm assuming still since like I am Gajil is not an element for number and definitely something like I am Gajil would be like even weaker than like the weakest like element for member of like the family relationship unit with and then definitely bring like the weakest element for member would be most likely Totomaru. Definitely even with remember. So like Gajil would be like even weaker than Totomaru, like slightly a bit weaker than Totomaru. And that might be the reason for like Gajil not being part of like the element for is like one positive item is different like the other positive item is maybe because of like Gajil wanting to be independent, like basically not wanting to be part of like the element for like I'm assuming like Gajil might have not got along to like the element for members and like so Gajil might have wanted to like stay independent as like a single member of like the fans guild. So like maybe it might be Gajil's position to like not join like the element for so like that's like the other component that I'm looking for. Like that's the case then I'm also looking to play Gajil would be like since this form and like I'm looking like even though Gajil won't be as strong as like Aria still I'm looking like maybe like the element of like Gajil might be like the second strongest like upper like Aria. It's definitely not grand. It's like I'm looking like home Gajeel versus Loki. Loki fight like in that fight like Loki initially he's struggling against like Gajeel, but still eventually like Loki like only bring getting some sort of like a power of great force in the sense like Loki will only barring and defeating Gajeel is like feeling the scenario that I'm sitting on to end my difference. And by then like I was thinking the team of like Loki and Aridas would have defeated Hopper and defeated both other two Lauren uh, Phantom Skill members of the like scenario that I'm looking, and that will like things ending like the whole Phantom Skill current Phantom Skill scenario like ending up in like a happy ending except in the scenario that I'm looking, and I'm looking like once the Zelda fight will be over and once like that way like the fairy skills will be like finally having will be like the fight against Dexter and will like ending up being a for like the time being and will be the fairy skills even like absolute joy of like even them being able to like protect and even save Lucy as well as like the parents still both like at that point while they were 40 like as happy and joyful like at that point is when I'm looking most likely for like lactose to like show up through like the parents like the scenario that I'm looking and at that point I'm definitely pressing like a quarrel between like Nara and like like Nara and both the friend would be extremely enraged to like see that was the moment that they be showing up so that's the scenario that I'm looking at Nara who's like usually always calm like I'm looking at that point like to like only the acting out of character and basically will be like seriously enraged on the very like of like incident like so scenario that I was learning. So like I also are written like to then Mara at that point is like what I'm also suffering and my preparation right. Okay, so like the flavor of the encryption right now I've got like look here right now making the threat to Gajeel so that really to erase Gajeel from this world like I'm the right now like my impression of for like the confidence of Loki and everything might have to do with like the element based like powers of like Gajeel. Like seems like Gajeel powers or natural powers are basically steel or like iron or steel based powers. Like I'm looking like Loki's like powers will be having like actual powers will be having like an advantage to that steel or like iron like powers of like Gajeel. Just like the scenario that I'm doing. This will be the reason for like Loki making such huge threat on like Gajeel. It's also definitely one of the instances like and as had already struggled against like Gajeel initially like and the so definitely my different wishes that like Natsu would be definitely stronger than Loki, but still like it will be like Loki just being well and fully aware of like this like kind of like a type advantage of like this spell when compared to like the spell of Gajeel would be like the scenario right now. So definitely one of the impression and I'm the experiment right now definitely, I'm also bring like Loki would be actually unlike Natsu or like Babu. Like I'm talking in the case of Loki, like Loki will be actually serious about like erasing Gajin and taking his life right now was definitely my very impression. So I'm also bring like Loki in this like current fight against like Gajin that would be right now taking place. I'm also bring like Loki or eventually only off for Gajin, but like I'm also bring like Loki also thinking of like actually taking Gajin to life, but like I'm also have that right at that very last second, I'm doing Gajin will totally, it will be extremely shocking and I'm like Gajin ego getting crushed by Loki like the scenario that I'm doing and that Gajin would be totally scared for his life and who would only think that he's supposed to die by the hands of Loki. It's like this is the scenario that I'm doing, but like at that very last second, I'm doing like most likely the remaining fairy tales will catching up to that location, reaching that location to meet to find Lucy. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. So like remain seeing like the remaining fairy tales in that kind of thing and that very last second Loki being distracted. That's like the scenario that I'm doing. So like immediately like the deal at that like so the scare Gajeel at that point like totally using like the best opportunity of that chance to like really use that opportunity to like escape the life of like the scenario that I'm looking at. And so only due to like the parasites that way like showing up to that occasion like I'm looking like Gajeel like that is surviving by the from like the hands of like from the powers of like Loki. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at the program of the okay, so like the name of preemption right now as for like Loki right now getting disturbed and saying not now and basically like straight away getting offered by Gajeel like I'm wondering right now what will be happening to like Loki will you most likely to like the presence of like Lucy solely to like Lucy being like a self still without the name of the preemption. So like I'm wondering like most likely this will be the reason for like Loki staying having this kind of like disturbance and connected to friendship was also my brother and my brother and is especially were like it would be like the celestial key powers that would be like the celestial keys would be like having an effect on like Loki's negative effect on like Loki's powers would definitely have a brand. And this would be the reason for like right now it's only due to like this right now maybe like would be having some celestial keys right now with or like I was looking like it would be or rather, it would be like Lucy might not even need like the self-synthesis with her. Like it would be just like the fact that like Lucy having known how to like Lucy being like a self-synthesis and knowing how to use like the power using like a self-synthesis. Like it's the fact that Lucy have that power, just knows that power within herself. Like to use the self-synthesis of like self-skill without like this that itself like might have like an effect on Loki, and that might be the reason for like Loki's power Token might be getting weakened while stock is in like close range to like Loki. That's the amount of and this would be right now like the sole reason for like Loki right now possibly having gotten weak, and that will be how like Gajeel might have right now overpowered like Loki definitely might have the reaction. So like I'm thinking like maybe Gajeel right now telling his like remaining phantom members, like the two of them, to like basically to get Lucy towards their boss, like towards like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm looking maybe that way, like those two, like maybe I'm looking that way, like those two, like phantom skill members, like taking away Lucy and running away from that building, while Loki would be trying to like go after them, like I'm looking like stopping Loki. So like I'm looking that way with like the range between like Lucy and Loki, that the difference between them like increasing maybe like that way, like Loki being able to like fight at his like actual full power, and that way like I'm looking Loki is only offering and defeating Gajeel. And both of them, by the time Loki will be like defeating Gajeel, like I'm the like Loki would be like totally worried for like Lucy. So like I'm looking by the like I'm looking like those two like Fanatical members who would have taken and ran off with like Lucy, and definitely Rita would be like thoroughly defeated and won't be able to like stop us. So like I'm saying both the Fanatical members would be like running off with like Lucy, and like them would be like ending up running into like the Fanatical remaining fairy like the scenario that I'm doing. So like that way, like them easily getting those the Fanatical members and saving Lucy to like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm person by the time like I'm person like Loki would be defeating Gajeel, like I'm something like the fairy tale still members will be showing up along like Lucy. So that's building it all those like and Loki being shocked by this lead. And that like and like those Loki being really relieved that it means like the fairy tale still members were able to like make it in time and shape this year to like the scenario that I'm going. And Loki at that point maybe will thanking Loki like the scenario that I'm doing. And Loki at that point getting insecure solely due to like this whole situation with like Loki and like Celestial with our fans and like Loki at that point getting insecure. Like yeah, like I'm thinking that would be like the beginning of that actual close bond of friendship between like Loki and Loki, and like the point where like Loki will be actually starting to like interact with like Lucy. It's also interact properly and like as like a friend with like towards like Lucy. Like basically all that like the beginning point will be from that point on. It's like can you just scenarios that I'm looking at. Okay, so like the feeling of Victoria production right now, so like right now, that's the fact that like Churchill has like attacked Lucy, like they get seriously injured like Lucy, like that's Lima Victoria production right now, and that it like basically also the like Loki right now, being fighting off against like those two lower rank like fantasy members, like that's Lima Victoria production right now, is definitely that like for especially right now, since like Gajeel has like injured like this is moment definitely I'm going to be not so that would be getting revenge. Like I'm looking like it's definitely right now with friends for like a Gajeel versus like an actual fight happening without much great delay at all. It's like the scenario that I'm looking where like I'm looking like Natsu would be like Tony like without much great delay I'm looking Natsu showing up to that location where like Jose and Gajeel and Lucy would be and they're like I'm looking like Natsu like the like the badly injured Lucy and like Natsu like getting extremely enraged and angry and like Natsu asking like Bob Jose as well as like the difficulty there like has to like basically who was it that basically for Luffy and the person like remembering at that point for like in an extremely villainous manner like basically Gajeel like like shouting back at like Nancy, saying that like it was him that basically Lucy, and basically and like in like a mocking man of sorts, like Nasu, like the way the nostalgic man of that, like Ambassador, like and Ambassador tends to like also make fun of Lucy as well, maybe like in front of like Nasu, it's also like about who that Ambassador. And at that point, like I'm looking at that point for like a never before seen natural to happen. And basically, like natural, like totally instantly getting some sort of like an extreme major powers there at that very moment, is like the scenario that I'm living. That considering like that realization of like the extreme villanism of like the jail, like considering triggering and with the unleashing some sort of like hidden teeth, like exceptional potential possessing power within Natsu, and that power getting like unleashed, and I'm also like Natsu like get maybe even getting some sort of a transformation kind of like a power, and I'm also trying Natsu not even smiling, being defeated and extremely angry towards like the Gajeel, and I was like Natsu totally like, and from that point on, also the fact that the fight between the battle between like Natsu versus Gajeel happening at that point, and this time at that point I was like Gajeel not even remotely even standing a chance against like Natsu, like exceptional power it's natural at that point will be getting uh so that was enraged power upgrade like scenario that I was doing and that fight being like totally and partly being like one sided in favor of natural like the scenario that I'm doing and Joe will be like shockingly witnessing all this like basically the exceptional power upgrade that Natsu will be getting in front of Joe like both will be shockingly witnessing that and at that point would be when like I'm going to Joe will get only seeing Natsu as like a real threat of like a member of like the characters it is like the scenario that I'm doing. And from that point on, when I'm doing like and also would be like seen as like a target for like Jose that he needs to that Jose will be probably seeing along the lines of like he needs to get rid of before like Natsu eventually grows even stronger and becomes an even more threat for like Jose. Okay, along the lines Jose would be seeing so like the thing about doing like that fight between like but still about like Jose would be like witnessing that fight between like Natsu and like Gajeel as like and after that fight to be totally one sided and Natsu is only crushing Gajeel is like the scenario that I'm going yet like I'm Natsu like not taking Gajeel's life but yet like I'm doing Gajeel like suffering a lot in pain simply like the extreme mark like that with like Natsu it's like at that point it's like even the scenario that I'm doing and Gajeel totally getting like with Russians Gajeel totally like suffering in pain and maybe even pleading to like not to like spare. It's also like an interesting scenario that I'm able to bring and not to like not taking this like it's also like an interesting scenario that I'm able to bring that way and like yet like Kejin won't be able to like do anything at all because like, he will be totally getting sidelined and probably getting defeated at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm able to bring and then the Subaru maybe at that point, like basically, that's Jose deciding to like basically get rid of like Natsu and basically to take Natsu's life at that point to take like Jose trying to like attack Natsu. But like as Natsu like that it's still generation Natsu will be able to like attack back towards like Jose at that point. Silva was different like the remaining paradise members will be showing up into that floor into that room within like the giant castle and basically at that point like maybe and at that point, I was like totally deciding to like literally changing plans and like totally deciding to like upgrade. And I was like at that point, not Gajeel, but like Jose deciding to like change plans and upgrade. And so at that point, I was like Jose recruiting by himself for like Jose quickly, like quickly like taking away like Lucy and like Jose totally flying off and escaping with Lucy. That's one of these two scenarios. Is what I'm looking at that point. I'm not remember. Okay, so like the play number frame section right now as for like Loki right now revealing that he knew that something bad would happen and basically that he couldn't be close with like Lucy yet like those are the 17 members are especially that is something on the especially that like it will be like Lucy the soldier like Loki not being able to like come uh, closer towards like Lucy would be solely due to like the fact that like Lucy is like a celestial wizard, especially when the celestial wizard powers would be having some sort of like an effect on Loki, certainly when it preempted, or like it might be due to like the trauma of like Loki that was way back from like Loki's childhood when like Loki might have maybe like in that December like Loki might have witnessed like parents dying by the hands of like basically a celestial wizard. It's also like also to that episode. Maybe it could be that disturbance and trauma that might be like affecting like Loki whenever he's in like the presence of like a celestial wizard. Or like episode it would be like celestial wizards might be like the actually in actuality might be like the weakness to like Loki's power, actual power, which is maybe so like he might not be able to like the tendencies of like powers will be like affecting like Loki's power. So like he might not be able to uh come in close range to like this so that's like maybe due to that. Definitely with Remington. Yet like for Loki, the look possibly so extremely unique that like Loki would be definitely having he would be most likely able to like sense like near future outcomes. Definitely with Remington. This might be like the reason. And I would like Loki's powers would be like they having a connection to like the power of like the wizard or like which doctor that like is here right now looking after like Master Macaron. Definitely remember them as I'm saying that it's not the my imagination as well. That as well, I'm about to bring up right now would be like also like a like near future like promotion kind of like a thing that she might have been able to like future right that she might of like a power that she might have had. Like I'm bring the same power like Loki as well might be having. And that might be the reason for like Loki even earlier it's just like being able to like sense that like something bad was like about to happen and basically the sole reason and that would be the sole reason for like that might have caused Loki to like even show up to like the location where like Lucy was never with the ambition. So with the never with the ambition right now is for like Loki right now calling himself pitiful and basically even asking if it is so like Karen like I'm sure Karen would be most likely Loki's sister. Definitely remember the image, but like she might have not like in like the past. Definitely remember the image. So definitely, I'm looking like Karen might have definitely been a self-still was not a stepping on French, and then there's like something like electors can pass might have and like basically taken the lives of like Loki. And I'm looking like maybe like the only person that Loki might have had in his life might have been his like the stuff Karen alone. It's definitely not a friend. So like I'm thinking like Loki like back in like that past like might have stream with like stuff dying in so it might have been like a self or like Karen dying in front of the clinic as a friend. And like Karen might have totally died while trying to like protect Loki in that system of the never primitive. So like I'm having that guilt of basically not being able to do anything. And I'm just after like taking Karen's life, like I was like reinforcement might have totally arrived at might have that way, like the villains might have been chased away at that point, but you know, but like I was like at that point from that day on might have been like just like extreme disturbance that might have been through might have started to grow within like within of like I think that incident of like might have caused that extreme guilt to be formed within like Loki of that thing not if that she had basically uh fought alongside with like sister like we could have saved such like sister Karen maybe along the line of like that extreme guilt. But like I'm wondering like Loki might have been since then like blaming himself like was it fear that is linked of like staying away and basically like not doing anything that addresses that thing like self was like Karen ended up dying back when to be along the lines of that exchange gives that Loki might have felt. So since then like I'm looking like Loki might have never been in, like come close to like any celestial wizard out there like the world of definitely understand because like uh that that concern might have of like logic power to like gets affected whenever and we can whenever it's close to like any celestial wizard and like even seeing that celestial wizards might uh deep down disturb Loki and might remind of each time of like the sister Karen late sister Karen certainly might have very much. So I'm considering like right now through the sword fight, like during the sword fight, I'm considering like Loki right now as like he's been trapped in that kaleidoscope like mirror. Like I'm considering right now Loki finally overcoming that kill and that disturbance within like Loki comes to with like this is the Karen that like the scenario that I'm considering. So like a parallel kind of like a similar scenario like how like Hellsman right now has left in a way kind of like overcame just like kill like I'm considering right now Loki overcoming his guilt and basically that will be how like Loki will be finally at that point will be breaking like the kaleidoscope and basically would be and I would like in Loki's case like I was going to be different rather than Loki basically like I was like in Loki's case like I'm considering maybe actually like the spirit of like Loki's like late sister like Karen the spirit of Karen itself, like basically like showing up with and entering within that kaleidoscope that Loki is right now trapped in and telling Loki how that basically that he's that at the age with along this length and that Karen is so proud of him to have like a brother like Loki and along such lines like telling Loki and basically that way like Loki finally getting rid of like guilt and insecurities and that way like Loki is finally getting back his powers and basically like Loki is destroying like the kaleidoscope and destroying those two fan of skill members and basically defeating those two fan skill members and like Loki making it back is like the scenario that I'm doing and by then like I'm considering by the time Loki would be making it back like I'm considering maybe Natsu would be like struggling in his like fight after maybe after like defeating Gajeel and also maybe like Natsu will be struggling in this fight against like Jose. It's also like about to do that and so like at that point like I'm considering maybe like in like basically maybe at that point like Loki rushing in and basically like Loki is like helping Natsu out and basically while Luffy would be like so close in like the sideline like still at that by then like Loki would have off him to like basically disturbance comes into like celestial result and basically that way like with like Loki's help like Loki as well as like Natsu's help like I'm them thriving off and like Jose, like the scenario that I'm doing, and Jose, like retreating at that point is like the scenario that I'm doing, and maybe like Jose retreating at that being forced to like retreat without being able to like attack Jose, like the scenario that I'm doing. That way, like the fairy tale will like finally winning like the entire war against like the Phantom Guild as well as like them also succeeding in like protecting Lucy as well. It's also like an angel of the scenario that I'm doing. Okay, so like definitely now the brain is right now as well, like also right now telling now since like unleash this like power from the pen and basically that even also even telling now to it that we will stop like upside like usually just like I'm looking this thing like upside might have been able to like since like way back since like they were all young and basically since like Naruto was like always like asking to want for Naruto to like want to like always fight against like Erza like even back then like Erza even bothering to like fight Naruto to would even though like Erza would be like it would be obvious for Erza that like Naruto is not going to win at all against Erza. Still Erza even back since back then like Erza might have like Erza even bothering to like let Naruto fight against Erza would be might be solely due to like since like even back then like Erza might have totally been able to like sense all this power from within Nasu and said like that will eventually surpass like even Arpa. Like Arpa might have been able to like sense that even back then and like Arpa might have even back then might have been seeing Natsu as like even though back then like Natsu was weak like since Arpa might have had that like expectation not only Arpa but like although definitely since like Arpa is able to like sense that like the speaking even Master Macro maybe like in the case of Macro like the moment Macro might have accepted Natsu, taken Natsu into like the fair trade field. Like the first time Macro might have even seen Natsu, felt like Macro might have been able to like sense that like exceptional potential and for lying within Natsu, certainly not the rainbows. Then those are definitely like Dragonade, I think like Natsu's father's name. So like I'm thinking his name being like since like the dragon name being like Spirit and since like Natsu's father, I think his name was like Dragonade. Definitely Natsu's father, exactly like Natsu's father as well might have in the system, but might have trained with like Dragonade. Definitely one of the range, but like the Dragon Gajeel and that would be like the preparation, and they might have been such as to close friends and like the Dragon Gajeel and Natsu's father might have been such as the close friends, and that might have been the reason for like Natsu's father possibly having even changed his name from his true name to like Dragonil is also like being a different person. So definitely like right now with like macro and then also bring like Dragonil might have been in like the past like Dragonil might have been like such a legendary powerful wizard, such an exceptionally powerful wizard that you know the rainbow. So like right now with like macro even getting up from bed and basically even saying Natsu to like basically that without objects properly basically. So like I'm definitely putting like she might have been able to like foresee this point where like Natsu will be like right now with like Natsu right now unleashing Natsu like a lot of Natsu like so powers like I was like and Natu getting some sort of like a major power there, like this moment, like he might have like that wizard of which doctor might have been able to like foresee through her like future sight like powers that she would be having, like exactly the same powers as that of like um as that of like Loki that she would be having, like she might have been able to like sense even beforehand as to like this moment, and this moment and the strategic moment will go like this, that like the current power upgrade of like Natu might be like that like Natu is like unleashing out of like him right now, like uh, would be like formed up power that like with like Natu's father like Dragonil might have used often in like the distant past, especially when the remember so like Natu reaching that reaching the point of achieving that popular power like which Dragonil had like would be what like was like right now macro would be like through like the which that might have been what like that which doctor might have been able to sense and basically might have right now told like macro right now certainly about the so like so definitely Napo's father might have been such an extremely popular and legendary kind of like the certainly by the third and his power as well will be like so extremely popular. It's definitely member framework. So like I'm still sitting in my preparation, but like since according to my preparation, like basically since like it's the name of like Nance's father, I think like being pregnant is really because of that absolute bond of friendship that like Nance's father might have had with like the dragon Gajeel. So like I'm sort of checking Nance even being taken care of by Gajeel when like Nance could remember like basically all that the before it like Nance's father is like leaving Nance in that forest where Igneel was would be more part of like conscious contribution of like Nasu father to like protect Nasu because like I'm thinking like definitely there might have been a lot of villains back then who might have been back then after like Nasu's father like Dragon to like take Dragon's life. So like I was looking to protect Nasu might be the preparation for like him leaving Nasu in that forest with the like taking it back then. The feeling of the so like my sister impressions are like even sort of like just in past like seeing and after seeing and sensing like natural house itself like the different like old man macro might have even from like different past might have might have known that there's really natural like the some of like that popular legendary user. Like an English definitely knows the remember. So like I was like even since then like I was more like macro might have totally seeing might have been seeing like natural as that specific wizard member of like the fairy tale skill that's going to like take like the that is going to like carry on like the fairy tale skills like the legacy or even take it to like even further height in like the future. This is definitely my consideration. And like it will and I'm the person definitely something like Asa might have definitely sensed the incredible potential within like Nasu from all the way from the distant past and the distant past well like that is exactly along the way like Asa as well even from the distant past might have been totally seeing Nasu as like that might be along the lines like Asa might have been always like to the distant past like might have been seeing Nasu as that exact fairy tale skill number that's going to like eventually like consent to the will be like leading like the entire fairy tale skill base and taking like the therapy ways to like superior heights and everything is definitely my commentary and question for it. Okay, so like the minimum reimbursement right now for like that the sort of like this so like basically that moment right now that looking at the photos of some younger days with like a macro like a young macro like and definitely that might be like definitely I'm putting the distance about like I'm looking like macro and that moment might have been part of that very painful research that's definitely what I'm trying to do. And I'm looking like people to decide that that being like a different research or like that might have actually been the parenting skill itself in like that system. That's definitely what I'm trying to do. So like that's like 1% the parenting skills being present even from way back then like the system. Or like I'm something like it might have been a scenario where like macro and that woman might have been part of like a totally different guild and basically in that guild like what might have eventually happened might have been like she might have had like a corruption on macro and basically literally what they might have totally like the Sindhita might have gotten married. The new one premise. So like anyway, back in the past during the younger days when they were part of this guild, like at that point, what might have happened would be like eventually one of their like those guild members like they might have been absolutely so extremely close. And those were like they might have had that absolute bond of friendship between all the guild members and like eventually one of like, the guild members might have eventually betrayed that might have been what might have happened and might have resulted in like some sort of like a villain, powerful like dark guild members to like attack their guild, and basically might have that attack for like dark guild might have resulted in like one of like their guild members like it's only due to like one of their guild members like betraying their guild like about like this dark guild might have like basically attacked like their guild and might have resulted in like one of like the genuine good friends like ending up dying. This like the scenario that I'm looking at. This might have been like that. And yet the computing macro and like also might have struggled their way into like eventually outgoing and defeating that dark and with damage. And I'm hoping that friends of theirs like that might have in like themselves that might have betrayed them and allowed for like the dark skills like attack on like the on their skills to like happen in that different path. Like I'm doing that attack maybe like the that friend that belongs to their guild as well might have joined like inside of assassins and might have even attacked them. It's also like about the thing that I'm observing. And I'm observing like maybe even to the present day that like betrayer might still be in like one of like the strongest dark guilds out there. Even to the present day. Like he might have eventually ended up being like the leader of one of the strongest dark guild and would be alive even to the present as well. So also like you know so like I'm referring like that there's like attack on that on the guild of like in which like macro as well as that woman was like that Dr. Bitch woman as well was like I'm referring like that attack made have resulted like them losing one of their precious dear good friend guild member who certainly was able to and that might have been like and even though back then like they might have easily survived and by like still offering that guild like still they might have lost one precious guild member as well as like they might have lost another precious guild member through that guild member's betrayal of that guild member betrayal. And this might have totally made like that which talk like guild member like basically her like she might have that it might have made that incident might have made her sick and basically it might she might have been fed up with like being part of like uh the wizard guild like or part of like being part of any wizard guild at all and so like I was she might have been fed up with like and so like I was like that might be the reason for like something like the campus like leaving the city and everything and basically living in like the forts all by herself might have happened through such a manner. While like considering like Makarov might have been like might have told her multiple times to like this, and by then like they might have probably even got married as well. So like at that point Makarov might have told her multiple times to like basically to not see things in like a prejudice manner and to like be part of like, the guild, but like she might have totally left so, like the guild is like the scenario that might have happened and basically macro might have decided to like stay in the guild, but like I'm considering like what might have happened would be like with her leaving the guild and like one other guild member like basically ending up dead due to that betrayal and the other guild member like betraying that guild and leaving and siding with the dark guild that way like with like three like prominent guild members like there might have been especially strong members of their guilds back then. So like with these three prominent guild members like instantly that guild losing those three prominent strong guild members and like even though Macro might have wanted for that guild to like still continue like I'm like the injuries might have like the remaining guild members might have not wanted to like continue and like the guild might have gotten disbanded at that point. Might have been what might have happened especially my friend. So like at that point like once like the guild got disbanded like at that point I was like it might have been extremely disturbing for Macro and like Macro might not have really wanted to be part of like a guild. So like I'm also like want to continue like taking up like Macro on the other hand might have not gotten the courage like might have wanted to like continue protecting like the Magnolia and everything and all the people and everything. So from the doctors and all the guild forces and everything. So like I was saying, like eventually, Macro might have eventually decided to like stop his own guild, and that guild might have eventually ended up becoming like the fairy tale guild. Just like the other positive and another. That way, like Macro starting like the fairy tale guild, and that way, like Macro might have straight away since like Macro might have been like the person who might have started like the fairy tale guild, like Macro like might have uh, being like straight away like the master of the fairy tale guild since then, especially when the 300. So like and then there's a maybe like that might be how like eventually like the fairy tale skill might have eventually been formed and created at this kind of things. It's definitely might have been and then also definitely under like macros guidance like I'm looking like the fairy tale skill like basically. was like basically was like even back when like Macro was a part of his like original guild as well in like the past along with like the like which top woman as well like even back then like Macro might have had this like carefree and restless nature so like I'm thinking that he might have that had till even after like starting like the fair play skill like and like come to the position of being like the master of the heritage skills. Even then, like we might have not changed at all, and might have like that might be like solely like it might feel that macros like that reckless and careless nature might have like basically attracted like guild members towards like like around like the same of nature to like the fairy and might have also changed a lot of guild members that might have joined like the fairy tales to like to be influenced by macros like a reckless and carefree nature, and but this might be how like the fairy tale skill eventually might have ended up like taking all the spotlight, negative spotlight and everything eventually, and became one of the most popular wizard guilds. Yet like I'm looking macro, even while they were having all this like carefree and reckless nature, like it really is due to like this like ambition and just like exceptional strength like emphasis like you might have also like basically group the federated guild members into that and being able to unleash each of their potential. And basically it might be also that the reason for like making use of their case skills while being that uh, their popularity won't be like even though like the popularity like not being like just reduced to like negative popularity uh, alone, like, but like them also having a lot of achievements as well, like them being popular for their achievements as well. It would be like also better things that new and the present. That is already like my approach, like exceptional training to like the skill numbers as well. It's definitely my personal ambition. So that definitely is a question right now that like basically that like which doctor might have only showed macro about like some premonition about like Natsu and everything. And she might have also seen like Natsu possibly fighting not only just like Iron Devil but also like Jose. Like she might have seen this much through her premonition and like she might have also seen like something like the person like Natsu unleashing on like powers and everything. And she might also be like nothing getting into trouble during that fight against like Jose as well. It's also like new member relation. So she might have, even though she might have seen her premonition, she might have not been able to like see her premonition to the extent where like a bit further ahead, like the scenario would be like Loki as well showing up and basically Loki as well fighting alongside Nasu against like Jose. Definitely one of the brands which like she might have not been able to see. She might have only been able to like see till the extent of like Nasu getting trouble. And it's definitely very much. This might be the reason for like her like so her like the people like Macro might have learned of this and basically so it might be like she might have often seen that like macro thing in that macro, even though macro barely want to like go up and go there, like still macro won't be having like the energy to do something. So like I'm thinking it might be that bit only contrary to expectation like right now. Macro, even though macro will be extremely exhausted like right now with like macro going up to like deciding to like go up to like the locations where like the fight between like the protest and the pencil looks like happening. Also, the thing I'm doing some right now is for like mass macro as we have already been telling like the this moment that like he's going to do this like safety as like a parent like basically definitely I'm bring this to like totally this these dialogues by macro and bring totally creating a skin within that which doctor woman is definitely my brand because like I'm looking like even though macro is leaving and even though macro doesn't have any of the like strength magical powers like I'm still my personal impression is that like basically that definitely the trauma from like the recent past might be within that which from woman and like that would be like that I'm going to bring like that trauma and that we are often have to like still not go along with like macro even though that macro might actually be something like I'm going to bring like every like staying scared within that head out in like the past while I'm going to bring right now the scenario that I'm going to bring is like for like macro most likely heading over to like the uh to the giant castle towards like where Jose will be. And at that point I'm looking like Nasu, which is like unleash power like I'm looking first Nasu totally offering and defeating Gajeel. And then like the Jose with Nasu fight would be happening. And even then like I'm looking like the unleash power, even with like the unleash power of Nasu, like I'm looking like Jose like in the Jose to like initially struggle against like the unleash powers of Nasu like I'm looking like and I was really Loki as well to be showing up. And I was like through that fighting, like I was wondering, like Joseph still eventually, as the fight will be progressing, eventually, like Joseph will only overpowering Natsu as well as like Loki. It's like still like doing the scenario that I'm looking, and as like Joseph would be about to take the life of like either Natsu or most likely Natsu at that very last second is like the since when I'm remembering like most likely macro will be like showing up like the scenario that I'm putting, while like all the remaining fairy tale guild members would be like totally extremely busy with like the whole shades, like number of shades as well, shade goes like thing as well, everything like I'm they will be fast to receive like them not being able to like go up to like the castle of like the giant like perspective and feel the like scenario that I'm doing. And I'm doing Master Macro maybe would be having like a tiny bit of like magical power still left within him, and using that I'm doing like macro most likely using like either maybe some transformation magic or like macro using some sort of like invisible kind of like a magic like to turn into invisible. So like I'm doing macros using some one of these two magic to like basically make its way while like the Predators will be fighting against the state, like Macros will be making its way to entering like the giant castle and making it all the way to like the very top of like the giant castle as like Joseph will be about to take the life of Natsu like and Loki will be like thoroughly defeated and sidelined. And at this very last moment as like and Lucifer Wells would be sidelined and basically probably injured and badly exhausted and almost barely conscious. And like on one side, like there will be also like Gajeel as well badly defeated and like barely conscious. And so like I was wondering like as Joker would be able to take Nasus like at the very last second like Ambrose could like would even Macro would be showing up. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. Like Macro would be straight away. Like Macro's plan would be to like sell since like Jose have that absolute goal for like the destruction of like the territory. And since according to my brother, example, definitely Macro might have been like the person who might have created like the fairy tales. Like I'm looking like so like Macro maybe seems like Macro was right now heading towards that location without any of the spouse. Like Macro's plan would be then Macro would be knowing Jose far too well and how badly Jose desiring for the destruction of the heritage skill. Like this as well, Macro would be knowing far too well. So like I was written by Macro going out there, like Macro would be planning on basically like telling Jose to like basically take macros like instead of like and not take Lucy instead like basically for like Jose to achieve this goal of the like destruction of like the fairy tale skills by taking macros like and pairing like the remaining fairy tale skill members as well as like Lucy and macros maybe like telling Jose that basically without him like the fairy tale skills will be getting expanded along with lines like macros even the macro deep down would be believing that like the relative shield would be like still left continuing without even if like macros dies back. That would be totally macro would be hoping for like a still number range macro would be totally lying to like trick Jose into like basically like pairing like the remaining purchase with members as well as duty in exchange for like Jose taking macros like would be like ambassador maybe like the strategy that like ambassador macro maybe attempting and so like at that point ambassador like Jose like totally making fun of that macro and like mocking for macro and basically Jose telling macro that basically uh, that basically Jose would be like taking the life of macro and abducting Lucy as well as like eventually destroying like the entire captive the heritage skills as well. Would be like powerless without the friendship mark to macro. Would be along the lines like I'm putting in the extremely villanistic manner like Jose would be like responding back to macro and considering at that point for Jose was like they even take the macro's life and macro dying at that point is like the scenario that I'm putting in. Natsu will be like so extremely injured that like even Natsu won't be able to like do anything to like stop that attack of Jose. So like that way Macro actually died. Jose taking the life of Macro. So like seeing that would be what I'm going to bring once again triggering Natsu into like bringing out and unleashing even more of like an extremely physical power of Natsu. Using the like I'm going to bring like Natsu would be most likely most likely that Charlie like sending out unleashing a lot of his powers and with that like I'm referring like Jose being so being overwhelmed by all that power and by that attacks of like Natsu and like that easily injuring Jose and basically Jose basically like tearfully basically retreating at that point is like the one possible scenario that I'm looking at. And with that like I'm looking like the Jose retreating and basically Luffy still remaining protected by like Nasu and like the fairy tale guild, and basically with that like like the entirety of like the fairy tale guild getting that absolute shock of like Master of the death, and Lucy for Lucy would be feeling that absolute extreme guilt of like basically her being the reason for like even Macro ending us dead. Okay, along the lines Lucy would be feeling, and like I'm sure the remaining fairy tale members like comforting Lucy and making Lucy realize that it's not her fault and all that like basically and like I was like by the time I was doing the like macros, that will be how like I was doing like the guilt within that which of a woman like at that point would be extreme because she didn't go along with like macro at that point, and she will be feeling that had she and she will definitely be having like exceptional magical powers as well, especially on the membership, even though not as strong as like how macros was before losing his magical powers. Like he still would be having like exceptional powers. So like she was feeling absolutely guilty for back then, like not going along with like macro, being the reason for macro, especially around that extreme guilt that's matter of that she was having at that point. So like I'm wondering, since like macro's last words to her was like basically would be like and that was the correct macro relying like I'm wondering so like that way like macro's last words to her being like basically that like macro's going to do like duty as like a parent like basically at that point like her feeling that basically that guilt causing her to like basically be like the new parent of like the fairy tale field, and basically like that way like not the macro being replaced by like being like the new mask of like the fairy tale field. It's also like an individual possible scenario that I'm going to thing and not going to or like the other possibilities basically for like uh even after like macros that like I'm looking like Jose even though like Anna to be badly that and then Rachel has to be badly fighting back against like Jose still number Jose escaping while abducting Lucy. That's the other person scenario that I'm looking at. And at that point like the not won't be able to like catch up to him, and basically that way like the fairy tale still feeling at absolutely a rock bottom that kind of like a situation, and that would be when like I'm looking like that's the stop only showing up, and her like basically like even though extremely she wouldn't want to like basically once again return back to like being part of like initial due to her trauma might be the reason. So still like I was her overcoming all that stuff like macro stuff like the guilt causing her to like be able to like overcome all that, and basically her being like the new master of like the fairy skill, and basically her at that point like would be like showing up and basically helping out like all of the fairy tales still like her bring out all sorts of like, and that would be her one of her strengths and specialty like solving situations in the situation like to come up with like strategies and everything to overcome such situations like that particular like would be one of our strengths. So like I'm looking like saying all sorts of like unique strategy and using that strategy like I'm looking like the fairy tale skill like eventually like basically saving Lucy along with her then also actually like that but that after team was like eventually saving Lucy just like saving the scenario that I'm looking and nothing present eventually saving Lucy from like that uh, from let's Lucy's father. Like I'm the friend that made Jose like bringing Lucy to like Jose's father, and like Jose most likely putting Lucy at like that home of like Lucy like Jose most likely using this like my sister to like put Lucy into like an in-person kind of like situation, and then Jose leaving with like the reward money, and by the time like and then like I was bring like the fairy tale killed under like the guidance of like that woman which doctor like I'm like them infiltrating and basically saving Lucy and leaving his like personal that I'm recovering. And maybe it could be since then like the fairy tale still member will be seeing her as like the master of like the fairy tale bit. And I was like by the time back to be returning back like he will be like refusing to like see her as like the master. But like I was different like that is being put in his place by like all the in that like the remaining fairy tale skill members like being against like lots of like point of view and decision, and basically that way like being forced to like basically to to like see like that to like basically be like to listen to like the orders and basically to recognize stuff as like just like master as well as like the master of the variables like during the scenarios that I'm looking for. And my differential right now is basically for maybe for like pretty macro, but like also like that female which talk implement as well like she as well. But maybe like both of them might be like even stronger than a tad bit stronger than That is also like a something that I'm looking for. And that way, like, that maybe at that point, like, refusing to like see as like the entrepreneur as like the master of like the heritage, the master of the heritage, and at that point, like, I'm looking like having a that was challenging us to like a fight and basically in that fight like putting that within his place and by offering that which is like the also like an individual process scenario that I'm moving on the correct and never preemption. Also the thing on the preemption right now for like us Gray and Edwin and all of them like basically sensing like basically this like negative stuff kind of like an all aspect like in that area like I'm going to be all due to like the power of like Jose as he will be like right now powering up to like basically like fight and take or for and defeat and take the life of Nazi. It's a new remember so like it will be all Jose's power it's the defense of the right now. And my first impressions are like Jose will be like totally knowing that Natsu is like the son of Ragni. So like I'm the definitely like the system of like I'm like Jose might have fought off against as Ragni and might have embarrassingly lost to like Ragni. It's also like a popular that damage and Jose might know of like Natsu being like the son of Ragni. So like I'm the like Jose will be having that frustration within in, for all the years of like wanting to like get within John's Ragni. But like I'm the Ragni might have gone missing since that distant past when Ragnhild had left Nancy with like Gajeel like since then I'm running maybe like Ragnhild might have only gone missing and I'm whispering that Gajeel the dragon might have totally died back then eventually Gajeel the dragon might have died and that might be the reason for like Natsu not being in like trying beginning since like the beginning but like I'm whispering in the case of Ragnhild I'm whispering that Ragnhild still will be alive somewhere but will be in hiding so definitely Michael Bury American. So like I was worrying like to get the revenge that he couldn't get on the Dragon like I'm looking at right now that Jose will be like desperately waiting to like basically fight Nato and or for a defeat and take the life of Nato right now is definitely Michael Bury American. And that would be that's the reason for like the negative aura of that like basically surrounding that area. It's definitely Michael Bury American. Okay, so like definitely what's the impression right now as for like Gray as well as like Elfman, like right now Charm game to like fight off against that so say like after the right now definitely easily will be like offering both Elfman as well as like Gray and I'm offering right now Elfman will be like attempting to select this sword form and basically will be trying to like bring down like Jose but even that would be absolutely nothing in terms of like Jose's strength and those would be like easily offering and defeating even like the resource transformation power of like X-Men as well. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. And like building like Warner as well, like I'm building then will be that bring out her power, which will be having like a side effect eventually. So sort of new impression. So like Nora as well like bring out her power, even though she knows that it would be like negatively affecting her health, like still Nora as well trying to bring out her power and basically like attack uh, like Jose. Like Jose easily offering her as well, and then Jose will be walking towards us, and like Jose, as Jose will be about to take her first life, but that very last second is when I'm about to bring like Macro would be making it to that range. It's like the scenario that I'm about to find. So I'm about to bring like and from that point, like the whole interaction between like uh, Macro as well as like Jose will be happening. It's like the scenario that I'm about to bring Macro like telling trying to get Jose to like not like any of like the retail members and like for Jose to like not take Lucy as well like basically Macro telling Jose to that to basically like take Macro's life in return for like not harming like the entire retail members so along the lines but like that not working and so like my other impressions were like while like the Jose versus like Macro interaction will be happening like I'm looking like on the way it up like basically Natsu will be like totally the whole Natsu versus Gajeel fight will be happening and like Natsu will be like strongly offering a defeating and like even making like Gajeel suffer because like Gajeel will be like even telling Natsu how he was like the one that stood third Lucy, like Natsu asking that to imagine straight away saying that to Natsu and like that was enough to like totally lose it and basically did not show much mercy to like Gajeel and basically Gajeel suffering a lot of like in the scenario that I'm doing. Yet like Natsu not taking Gajeel's side, but like Gajeel was entirely sideline to the point of like not being able to like even more, at all move at that point the second scenario that I'm doing. Natsu saving Lucy and then by the time Natsu would be like running back like I'm looking like now to be getting that absolute job because like by then I'm looking like Jose would have probably not only would have not only taken the life of that Macros, like the scenario that I'm going and like that could be what like Natsu will be like shockingly seeing when he will be like turning back of like the scenario that I'm doing. And at that point I was when would be the whole Natsu versus like the ultimate that would be taking place at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm looking and I'm and about the thing that I'm looking at that point is also for like usually in that 1 versus 1 fight that I'm looking to be taking place between that Natus and Jose like definitely was looking by then like Loki as well will be showing up and like I'm looking like while that fight would be happening and like eventually if Jose would be only offering Natus and Loki and like as Jose would be able to take Natus life and maybe for like a scenario where like it has been Jose would be able to take Natus life like at that point that basically that which sort of like showing up it's also like a possibility that I'm looking for, like easily using that ultimate thought that was the totally like attacking Jose. It's like the scenario that I'm looking, and at that point, still like I'm considering like for like the remaining characters who would have been sidelined by then, like would be like slowly getting up by then, and Natsu would be getting up, and Loki and all of them would be getting up, and they would be like giving it like all of the last bit of like strength. I'm considering them probably all of them like putting it into the final attack, and them all attacking Jose together at that point like the scenario that I'm looking, and like that resulting in like Jose maybe like getting to a certain extent like getting seriously injured, like the scenario that I'm looking, and Jose causing Jose to like a retreat is also like a possibility that I'm also Jose cutting and my president. Okay, so like definitely was a very interesting right now with like Lucy provoking Gajeel to the point of like Gajeel right now going crazy to the point of like Gajeel like basically like jumping up mid there and about to like land at some sort of like an ultimate attack on like Lucy right now. I'm looking right now from Gajeel's mind that Gajeel right now would be such an extending crazy gap in that like Gajeel right now at this moment will be like about to like this attack that Gajeel is about to land on logic from radar, like if the attack lands like like it's not likely to be intended to that take Loki's life right now. It's definitely not my temporary impression because like I was wondering like Gajeel would be totally extremely crazy that like Gajeel is totally unaware of like the consequence that basically of basically turning Jose himself like against him. It's definitely one of the impression. So like I was wondering like either if like Gajeel says that like he's going to like put the blame on like the other fans still members still my other impression definitely that like Gajeel would be like still definitely Jota will be knowing far too well like the kind of cap that Gajeel is. So like I was wondering, definitely even if like Gajeel does something that like that like Jota would be like straight away be able to like straight away tell that it was all Gajeel's doing. So definitely my other impression. So Gajeel would be extremely like extremely crazy and that he won't be like even be aware of that. It's definitely going to industry aware of getting into that field is coupled with his own guild master like Jose who would be like a whole lot stronger than Gajeel. Yeah, like I'm sure like Gajeel would be having this like more confidence even after seeing possibly Gajeel having seen like the power of like Jose multiple times after like him joining the band will still Gajeel will be having that swimming weight. Gajeel is so basic phrase that he will be having that extreme or confidence of basically that like he will be right now as he's like attacking like about to attack like Lucy from mid there like he will be actually intending to like take Lucy's life for that attack of like the scenario that I'm saying. But like I'm thinking definitely right now for like not to like stop the deal like the scenario that I'm over. So definitely is like the whole Natsu was a very fight like I was doing like Gajeel totally eventually would be like begging to like Natsu. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. Gajeel totally begging and pleading to like Natsu to like spare Gajeel's life as like Natsu would be like making Gajeel suffer to such an extreme extent. It's like the scenario that I'm delivering and my brain. And my secondary impressions were like seeing how much like Gajeel has flexibility and was even like Natsu or even losing control to the point of like ambassador Natsu like after like defeating Gajeel ambassador like scenario to be like Natsu even going to like same extent of like trying to actually take Gajeel's life. But like ambassador at that point ambassador maybe it would be like Lucy that would be shouting out towards like Natsu. And that shout out would be what like snap Natsu out from his like that extreme rage that will be controlling Natsu at that point is like the scenario that I was looking at. So only so that like I'm saying like now so sparing Gajeel's life, but like by then like Gajeel would be like totally will be so badly signed and defeated and will be even unable to like move at all, especially with Ramsey. Yet like I'm wondering like the remaining kind of still members would be like eventually like saving Gajeel and especially when Gajeel will be making his return in like the middle distant future. It's like also like an interesting scenario that Gajeel will be like especially targeting that and will be like training hard and literally will be making his like comeback trying to like bring down natural like certain the distant future, but even then never was like Gajeel would be like even more than right now like Nato would have grown to like way superior levels of strength rather than in like the temperature that like at that point that they would even be standing nowhere near of like a stand of like a chance in like bringing Nato down when compared to even right now. So it's like the Olympic scenario that I'm looking. So like definitely bring like even after like something we see to like such same extent I'm looking like still Nato won't be taking the life of the solely due to like Lucy. Lucy's interface, eventual interference is like in scenario that I'm looking at the impression right now. But of new information right now is that recently that basically it's Dr. Basically that while in front of like a matter of it, basically that like she's like maybe she's like imagining it that basically that might have been like I'm simply my information but like that might be different due to like some like like toxic like the near future of like basically like not so through like that was and basically like unleashing like that current ultimate power with it like Nasu technical with trends and that might have been that absolute popular power within power of like some sort of like a salamander or like a dragon slayer power within which like basically Dragonade had and then written about setting other things and how shockingly feeling that other sensing that like shockingly that got the shockingly feel that was like she's imagining it with it so like because of like at that point might feel at the point where like she might have shockingly again realizing or like thinking of like the possibility of like that fairy tale did number like now so actually the possibility of like in being like the son of Dragon Age, especially when the emotion because like my other emotion right now is definitely that like in like the symptoms that basically with like that is stop to like looking at this like photo with like young man or as well as a bunch of people wearing like in like black outfit like I'm thinking like that might have been like the days when Jay might have been in there like guilt of the cleaner of the emotion that is so that in that guilt like I'm thinking like among the real members like there might have been like Macro there might have been that big doctor, and there might have been definitely the younger there might have been Ragnil as well, might have been a guild member of that six in guild, as well as like Jose as well, might have been a guild member of that exact guild back then. Definitely not the same person. So like I'm looking uh Ragnil back then might have been like the youngest guild member. Yet like I'm looking Ragnil might have been like might have had like so much potential that like I'm looking like from the training of like Ignil Ragnil like basically that and Ragnhild I'm assuming that his name might have been Ragnhild that the moment he had even joined that till that his name might have been Ragnhild because that even before that he might have totally maybe in the Christian path might have probably wandered into that forest and might have ran into that he can use the dragon he might have totally and he might have been that maybe Nance's father might have been an orphan so also like so like he might have wandered into that forest and might have gotten lost and basically might have like that they ended up with like in front of like he can use the dragon and basically he might have been like the top of that and might have been totally there. Yeah, like I'm looking like eventually the bond might have been formed between that he can use the dragon and his father. So like I'm looking that way like he can use the dragon might have solved like its powers and attacks to like Nazu's father. So like I'm looking that way like eventually Nazu's father changing his name to like Dragonade and eventually then like once he got older like he might have decided to like set off to like the city and basically that way that he might have usually had the role to like basically usually be part of like the researchers and the research jobs and everything. So like I was thinking that way like they might have temporarily part ways and basically like that at that point like Nancy's father might have decided to like temporarily part ways with like Ignil and they really need Ignil whenever like they might have been such as good from that point that like Nancy's might have felt the basically of like meeting Ignil whenever he can and basically that way like that way might have been how like Nasu father right changed his name to like Ryan and ended up joining like the Wizard Guild of like Macro. And that with top friends I was certainly one of the things. So in that case when Ragnar might have joined that might have been matter of the stopper as well as that might have been Jose as well. Certainly one of the things. So I'm looking even in that case I'm looking even from Jose it might have been matter of that might have got to the position of being with the same. It's definitely not the same. So Jose might have definitely wanted the position of Jose thing. Then also I'm looking even that Jose might have had this absolute massive crush on that switched off the belief of the impression, but she might have fallen for metal and that might have created a lot of jealousy within Jose. And on top of that, Jose might have had this desperate desire to basically to achieve the position of a certain, but even that macro might have thought that. So back then Jose might have been extremely jealous of also my number then I'm looking after I'm looking after after my program those opportunities might have been diagonals that might have gotten the position to the position of getting with the things titles of new ones of things. So at that point I'm looking Jose might have been fed up and Jose might have decided to basically leave the guild and join some dark guild or something maybe or Jose might have decided to destroy that guild and basically might be and start his own guild or something along the lines Jose might have built. So I'm just wondering what Jose might have done by might have been Jose might have because I'm also before Jose might have betrayed that guild and basically might have sought the help of the last guild because I'm also in the distance of I'm also as part of one of the missions of the guild in which Makarov and Dragonil and all of them were another in one of the missions and also Dragonil might have fought off and Dragonil and that the third guild might have fought off against last members and in that fight I'm the parents of Sagarin as well as and I'm looking Sagarin and might be definitely siblings, especially with Sagarin being the Erza's elder brother. So I was looking their parents might have been dark guild members back then. So I'm looking in that battle I'm looking it might have been Ragnar that might have taken the life of Sagarin and Erza's mother as well as might have badly injured their father. So I'm thinking still they might have managed escape, but and that might be how Segren and Afsa might have that they ended up in an orphanage. Certainly not terrible. So Segren and Afsa's father might have hid his injuries by wearing covered clothes and might have left and he might have knew that he was about to die due to the injuries. So he might have left as well as Segren to the some orphanage in the city and basically he might have left and then without much creativity he might have died. So in the next second since then might have had this absolute second since then might have known that basically that it was just wizard by the name Dragonil that had taken the life of their parents. So and the Severin as well as Arthur might have knew that since back then. And back then I'm the friend both Arthur as well as Severin might have had this absolute sense of and desire to get revenge on Dragonil and destroy Dragonil as well as all the North Mages. This might have been to destroy all the North Mages as well, to be maybe not the Severin's plan. And to have the Dark Hills take over Magnolia as well as the entire world and all that might have been Severin's goal. That such a goal might have been found to be anyone since back then, and that might have been the goal of Earth as well. Severin might have only influenced for back then, and that way that might have been the religion goal was as well when back then the feeling was Emerson. But I was as Severin and Earth grew up in the orphanage, eventually Earth might have been able to see the light and see things for what they are, and some might have been able to realize that basically it was due to the parents villanism of being dark members that basically that that was the mental consequence of the villanism might have been along the lines that some might have been able to eventually realize and comprehend. But in the case of Petrine, might have still had that aspiration of revenge, wanting to get revenge on Dragon's life as well as destroy all the normal guilds and have all the normal guilds be destroyed and have the Darkins take over center the world and everything. So Sakura might have then planned to basically and it might be during that point that and I was wondering by then I was wondering that Sakura as well as Erza might be and I was wondering maybe it would be during that point that basically coincidentally a noble family might have sort of to the orphanage and out of the might have been what might have happened. So Erza might have been all alone with the other kids in the orphanage while brother Segren might have been taken away through adoption but into the that noble family definitely was might have happened. So like Severin might have had that absolute villain of the opinion. So like everything what Severin might have planned might have been like he might have role to like basically make it to like the Christians with like Severin that way ending up being like a member of like the noble family and since like I think that for like to be a council member that one should be from like a noble family like since like that's a condition I think it's like a so like at that point Severin might have setting up this role for even higher rank might have decided to like make it through any manner through cheating or against for Severin to like make it to like positions being like a council member might have been like the plan of Severin so like what Severin might have done might have been like Severin then might have taken the life of like that out of the parents and like then that Severin might have turned it into like making scene as if like it was like an accident or something and like then that way like Severin might have got hold of all the assets of like that noble family and basically then for all sorts of trickery and cheating like Severin might have made it all the way into like becoming one of like the council members definitely member of the impression while in the case of Afra like by the time it was she was old enough to like basically leave the orphanage like Afra might have decided to like join like the fairy tales theater by then. It's definitely not the by then like about Frederick Macarol might have started like the fairy tales theater and like the skills might have been gaining popularity and Artha might have probably like the fairy tales just then from all the news that Artha might have heard of like the fairy tales just creating trouble and everything. It's definitely not the generation. So that might be the case. And then also and that what might have happened at like after that like eventually what might have happened will be like basically so that the dark field might have had this like towards like specifically towards like tracking ages specifically even that and you have the impression. So like eventually what Jose might have done might have been that Jose might have with like his absolute jealousy that he might have that and had towards like while being in the same guild as that of like Magaro as well as tracking like what Jose might have done might have been Jose might have decided to betray like this guild and basically to team up with like the Dark Guild to like basically help the Dark Guild to like basically that way to like launch an ambush attack on the result guild. Yeah, and I was wondering that might have happened. So like I was thinking by then Ragnar might have totally gotten married and Natsu might have been born. So like I was wondering that still Ragnar back then might have not named his child. Certainly not the remember. So like I was wondering that like they might have had like a this guild family outing or something and okay, so like it's an interesting part like maybe during that family outing like I was wondering like due to like solely due to like Joseph's betrayal like I was wondering like a huge scene of like the kids might have like made like an ambush attack on like the guild of like Macro and also Ragnar and all might have been what might have happened back then so the remember so like since like they might have been so stringent and might have had their guard on like anything with that ambush attack like Ragnar wife might have died and like Natsu might have been Ragnar during that time and that was like a lot of the a bunch of like captains I was seeing on the circle might have died. I think that because I was also definitely more kind of happened so like at that point, I'm also thinking like what might have happened at that point might have been like basically like then like I was looking at all of those news members that were remaining like might have had that with them they might have only gotten overboard by like that type of like emphasis that with artists members so like they might have all like escaped in different ways and fighting like escapes to like different ways so like I was looking at that then like macro might have escaped with like switched off and like mid might have escaped with like nothing and something like that might be when like a position maybe Igneel might have been maybe saved by the African of that and that might be when like Igneel might have rushed to that for the Igneelis and might have left like the Davian everywhere and that Igneel might have left that box as well to not have like the Dark member find that neither now so you know find it's definitely not end up having new interactions so definitely, after this, like after this whole incident, like I'm looking at ones like Dragonade and like ones like Dragonade as well as like and I was looking maybe after that incident like all my macro and then, like macro as well as like the stuff might have not seen Dragonade since that incident. That definitely was trying to maybe since that incident Dragonade might have gone missing and that way Dragonade might have also lost his like with a strange title as well because that might have been a certain and macro as well as like that. which Dr. Woman like then might have only appeared to the council members that they really definitely about like the betrayal of like this and everything, but like I'm saying solely due to the lack of evidence of like the betrayal and betrayal that the council members might have lacked witness their appeal and everything, and so like that way like I'm saying maybe it might be at that point that it was different that maybe that which Dr. Woman might have been fed up with like this whole wizard guild being part of this whole wizard guild and with like the council and everything that like she might have left for like that for and might have decided to like live in solitude or like a in that for like her taking that decision might have happened back then. Might have been because like a lot of her dear friends might have died in that time, but that especially might have been the reemergence of that might have been what might have happened. And then like Macro might have slowly decided to like start his own guild and basically like might have created the fairy tale guild and around right then itself like I'm different like so as well might have totally created its own guild that the Sanders guild. This might have happened back then. It's definitely my good understand. And was like after like Nazi might have joined like Macros like Circus guild. Like maybe initially Macro might have only felt that it might have been a coincidence that like Nazi will have like kind of like a theory kind of like people that of like Dragnet. But like I was like uh, because like still remember the thing that even back then Ragnar might have not named his son when Ragnar was might have been back was with like Macro and like so like that way like Macro went like eventually like Natsu might have joined like Macro's like which was like at that point even though Natsu had like theory was like similar to that of like like Macro might have not realize that Nasu is like the son of Ragnar, but like I'm looking at like Nasu spent time there in like the characters that Nasu grew up in like the characters feel like Nasu like by then like I'm looking Macro might have been totally able to like see like Ignite Dragonite in that Nasu is going to so like this might be how like I'm looking and like this might be how like basically Macro might have totally realized that like Nasu is like the son of Ragnar and since then I'm interested in Macro and Macro might have maybe told about the school at Erza, the university. And Erza might have told about her backstory as well. So like the only person in like the favorite guild that Erza might have told about her backstory about Secretary and everything might have been only to Macro and Macro alone. It's definitely my better impression. So definitely there might be that like personal connection between like Macro and Erza. Like they might like talk like all these like secrets between like the guild and everything like so because like macro would be the only thing that like if something happens to like macro that macro might be wanting like a to like basically lead like the characters to at that point might have been like macros did enrich into the certainly my opinion. So until like Natsu finally unlocks its like true potential at that point I'm looking that definitely once like Macro might have realized that Natsu like the son of that dragon is like at that point I was looking at Macro might have okay maybe that felt that basically like Natsu like the future in like future like the fairy tale still would be like then that if the fairy tale still would be known by the name of like Natsu, like the salamander. Might have been what like Macro might have genuinely strongly believed. And basically Macro might have told this to like us, and this might be the reason for like us as well. Maybe knowing about like all this potential within Natsu. Or some might also know that even the person know that like Natsu is like the son of that dragon is like the great powerful that wizard and all that. It's definitely not with the impression. So definitely even while dragon might again things that get that of macro and Jose and all of them. Like even then I'm looking for like macro. I mean like Dragonil might have been like the youngest member maybe, but still like Dragonil might have gained a lot of might be like the most popular member of might have been like the most popular member of that wizard guild. In which like macro and all of them were like certainly member the range. And all this popularity of that Dragonil was getting as well might have created like a lot of Chelsea within like Jose back then to sort of new and the range. And I'm looking for my Tundurian version as for like this would be like the precise reason for like basically even Sekaran even taking Natsu seriously on realizing that Natsu is like the son of the dragon and all that would be precisely because like of that extreme desire within like Sekaran that he needs to basically get revenge. So that unfulfilled desire, wellness desire that might exist within Sekaran to like get revenge on like Dragonil by taking Dragonil's for like Dragonil taking the life of like Sekaran's parents and that's that. But like the grain might have only lack loss all of any sort of lack might have but they might have seriously not care and might have when seriously dislike us at the moment Asa might have started to like realize the truth and basically that like her parents were like the actual villains for being like larger members and all that. Like at that point, like understanding that split might have happened between and that distance might have been formed between cigarette and in like the past. Like definitely know the impression. So definitely, my personal impressions are like this will be about the like cigarette like the person like after realizing that not to like the son of dragon like cigarette will definitely have initial goal to like basically not just straight away take Nazis like but like to most likely the current plan would be to like precisely to cigarette might be desperately into the person who is like desperately constantly trying to like find Dragneel, but like under the Sagarin's plan, even after Sagarin realizing that like not was like the son of Dragneel, like Sagarin's plan might have been to like first find Dragneel and then to bring chapter Nasu and basically bring Nasu towards like Dragneel would be to capture and imprison Dragneel and to bring Nasu there and basically to listen to like and then for like basically for like Sagarin to like get his ultimate revenge and by making Ragnar suffer by taking Natsu's life like life in front of that Ragnar and then to try the badly Ragnar will be badly suffering at that point then to take Ragnar like this might be like right now like the ultimate that villainous kind of the role of Sagarin right now. It's definitely not the trend. It will be like most likely the soldiers about like Sagarin right now not harming Nasu. It's also technically not enough to realizing Nasu is like the sun dragon it in like the present is definitely my doesn't be temperature right now.